easier to book than Cortez, but I would love to have Cortez on and just have an open conversation with her about democratic socialism. What is it, and how do you pay for it in a non-hostile conversation? But we have reached out and have not heard yet. We do have Bill O'Reilly on, however. Bill O'Reilly, whose new book called Killing the SS comes out. Oh, it does not come out on September 18th. Does it come out on September 18th?
Of course it does. What's the matter with you?
Because my book comes out on September.
It on the jacket.
My book comes out September 18th.
So then people have to buy them both. And they'll be happy to do it. I hope.
So, how you doing, Bill?
I'm all right, Beck. I'm hanging in and watching all the chaos develop around the political hatred.
Well, let's start.
I have some very, very astute observations, so have Stu get his pen and paper out.
Stu's not here, but Pat is. So
Pat!
And I got
Pat is here today. Excellent. Is that an upgrade, by the way, over Stu?
Yeah. Big time. Yeah. Stu is like a limp leg that has been has gangrene for a long time. Anyway, Bill, let me start with Peter Strzok and the hearing yesterday. Two questions. A, I don't even understand what the point of this is. It seems a little embarrassing on both sides. However, the second thing I would like you to comment on is, I don't know how anyone thinks that somebody who wrote the things that he wrote while he was heading up an investigation should be a part of any investigation at any time when it's revolving around the things that he's texting about.
Well, look, there are two main important points that all Americans should know about. Press missed both of them. Okay, as they always do. The first thing is, this is a criminal investigation, Beck. All right? The special prosecutor is looking into violation of federal law.
By Strzok?
Just overall.
Okay.
The Russian collusion story is a criminal investigation, which is why you have the FBI in it. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that's number one. Number two, in order to secure a conviction in any criminal investigation, there has to be evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. The fact that the lead investigator was obviously a hater toward Donald Trump wipes out anything the Mueller people may hope to achieve, because there'll always be reasonable doubt that the investigation was fair. Always.
Bill, if this went to trial and it was you or it was me, and we found out that the lead investigator who called for the investigation,
they throw it out.
They throw that case out in a heartbeat.
Okay, so that's number one headline, that this weasel, and he is a weasel. The first thing I told my audience on BillO'Reilly.com yesterday was, you look at the guy standing there or sitting there, okay, and you look at his body language, his facial expressions, you try to get a summation on television, because television doesn't lie. Camera doesn't lie. I mean, it zeroes in on you. I saw this guy as a smug, arrogant, sneering, why do you dare ask me these questions when I'm protecting the country? It was almost like Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men.
It really was. It was exactly the same impression I came away with. He is so arrogant.
Unbelievably arrogant. And you have dared to question me. So the first headline is, beyond a reasonable doubt is not going to happen with Robert Mueller. And that's huge. That is huge. The second very important story for the American people is that the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee could not care less about what happened, about the facts, about possible corruption at the FBI, about anything. They hate Trump so much, it doesn't matter what happened to them. They're not truth seekers.
So, Bill, help me out on this, because, the left is very upset with me today, because I said about an hour ago that I don't understand the difference. If you know that the local sheriff that Martin Luther King went to and asked, I need a concealed carry permit. And he said, well, now, son, I don't think you need one of them. That's what we're here for. I think we know that Martin Luther King couldn't have trusted the people who, by day, were taking fire hoses and dogs to people that were marching with him. If there were texts at the time, you know that the texts would have been from some of these guys. Don't worry, he's not going to get all that. We're going to take care of it. You know that was happening behind the scenes. So why is it that we can look at this and Hoover, a guy who made up his mind about Martin Luther King, said he was conspiring with the communists and the Soviets and did all kinds of things, and the left says, this is racism. This is horrible. You cannot have that happen and receive any justice. What is different in this particular case?
Well, why would anybody be mad at you for that analysis?
Because I'm a racist. Because I've
just mentioned Martin Luther King.
Mentioned Martin Luther King, and to compare Trump to Martin Luther King is racist. I didn't compare. I'm asking about the system.
That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay, so look, the American people have come to a point, I believe. All right, because I'm always ahead of the news cycle, as you know, Beck, which is why you have me on here every week.
Right. Well,
I believe that the American people have come to a point where they have tuned out most of the news analysis and editorial coverage of the president and of Russian collusion and all that. They're gone.
Yes.
And I wrote a message of the day on BillO'Reilly.com that cited this week's ratings on cable television. They're down, if you can imagine, with all of these huge stories.
These
numbers are down. And for CNN and for MSNBC, it's a catastrophe how much audience they're losing.
Like, what do they have now as an audience? What's their prime time?
Well, let me give you an example. Chris Cuomo, the great hope at CNN, gets a 9 o'clock program, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So he goes on, and the first week he averages about 1.3 million, 1.25 viewers, which for CNN is very good and is the number one show. He's down to 850.
Holy cow. At 5 o'clock, if I would have had 850, I would have been fired.
Right. Well, it's a different time than when you and I were reigning supreme on cable news. But he's lost almost 40% of his audience in 3 weeks in a up news cycle. Wow. And lots of stuff happening. It's not the doldrums of summer. Okay? So Rachel Maddow is the number one show on MSNBC. Okay?
Did you just call her Rachel Maddow? Oh, Rachel. Okay.
Rachel.
All right. No.
Rachel.
Yeah.
All right. Lost about 40% of her audience. Okay. Now, why? You can tune in every night and see Miss Maddow hate Trump. That's what she does. She hates him. From the time she comes on, the time she comes off, she hates Trump. And then once in a while is a pillow commercial that, somebody can go out and take a breath of fresh air. Okay. But then we're right back to hating Trump. Nothing else. It's just this. And so people have had it. Even the people who do hate Trump, they've had it, enough. It's just seeped into the soul of the American public that they're being conned. Not to say that Trump's the greatest thing. I mean, you can like him or not like him based upon facts, but just to hate him and hate him and hate him. And on the other side, Fox News is losing audience too, but not as quickly as the other two because they support Trump.
Yeah, I did a show yesterday, just all call-ins, and just took thoughts from the audience. And I was shocked there was, I think, 2 people that got through who said that they were former Democrats. They started listening a couple of years ago, and that they were listening because I was the only one that was willing to have a reasonable conversation and look at both sides, and that they've changed their point of view because of that. I think that the idea of having civil conversations and civil dialogue is refreshing to most people on the left and the right. They want the truth. Just they're only getting a choice of the spin of this side or the spin of that side.
Yeah, because it's not instructive or it's not positive to anyone's life.
Yes.
And this is true, to live in a world of deceit and delusion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm waiting for the ferocious backlash against the media. I don't know whether it will happen. Trump today in his press conference just excoriated NBC and CNN. Right there, all right, just basically excoriate him. That's nothing new. But I'm waiting for the people to say,
okay,
you know what? I'm just going to walk away from it entirely, and, you know, I'll pick my people, Bill O'Reilly or Glenn Beck or whoever it may be, and I'll check in with them and try to find out what's happening in the world. But I'm not wasting my time anymore on this other stuff.
Right. I think that is already happening, but I want to go back to Donald Trump. He's had a really interesting week. Some really good things and some questionable or bad things as well. But I want to, we'll take a break, and when we come back, I want to ask you and start right at that press conference and get your view on why you think that might have been a good thing to excoriate CNN and NBC over in Great Britain with a joint press conference with Theresa May. We'll go there here in just a second with Bill O'Reilly from BillO'Reilly.com. All right. Let me tell you about Mercury Real Estate. Biggest investment you'll probably ever make will be in your home, and that's why there is realestateagentsitrust.com. Realestateagentsitrust.com. Because working with the right agent makes a significant difference in the outcome of buying or selling a home. Now, we have 1,000 agents all over America who are just like you. Their word is their bond. They're fans of the show. They share your sensibilities. They're fully vetted and handpicked for their knowledge, their skill, and their track record in your area. It's really important, a couple of things, that they know what your house is worth in your area, and that they also have a system to bring customers in, that they have some way of getting people to the website and seeing everything that is available and moving your house as fast as possible for the most amount of money. So if you want to sell your home fast and for the most amount of money, realestateagentsitrust.com is where you need to go. Go there now, find out all the details. Someone will contact you within minutes. It's realestateagentsitrust.com. All right, let me play the audio of a press conference that just happened in England with Theresa May and Donald Trump. Here's what was said.
John Roberts, go ahead, John. No. John Roberts, go ahead. CNN's fake news. I don't take questions from CNN. CNN is fake news. I don't take questions from CNN. John Roberts of Fox.
Bill, your thoughts on this?
I wouldn't have done it that way, but I wouldn't. You know, I've said a million times that you can get your point across without throwing hand grenades, because that basically reflects back on you. But the CNN is in business, and people should understand this. It's not that they are meeting every morning saying, we want to be Venezuela, and we want to be socialist, because they don't. These are people with big houses in the Hamptons who spend more money in a month than most people earn in a year. They hate him personally, the President of the United States. And so they say, we can make money and hate him at the same time, because our audience will hate him And that's who we want to watch us anyway, so that's what we're going to do. That's how I would do it. Rather than just say fake news, fake news, fake news, fake news, I would say, look, I'm not going to take your question, CNN, because you don't report the news fairly, and I can just run down the roster of people you have on your air. Every one of them hates me. Every single one of them hates me. All right? And you're trying to make money off that hatred, and I'm not going to play into that. Now, wouldn't that be a lot more effective, Beck, than just saying fake news, CNN?
Yes. So
okay.
Let me
that's my point there.
I think it's just as wrong to blanket statement fake news on either side, because that's what the left was doing when they used to call us Fox News faux news. That was everywhere under Obama. But it's different. It's different than Obama because, and that's an interesting point you bring up. President Obama was criticized on Fox News and in other places, primarily based on policy. Mm-hmm. Okay, that there was a strain of he was born in Kenya, he wasn't born in Hawaii. But I destroyed that in the first week. So did we. By
coming up with the two newspapers that printed his birth announcement, and it would have been virtually impossible for anybody to. And why would you do that to Barry Obama, a little boy who has no money and no influence? I mean, come on,
ridiculous.
Right. So I blew it out the first week, and that was that. And anybody who picked up on it, you put them in the irrational category. And Donald Trump was in that category, by the way, and I scolded him for that on the air. Anyway, so that Obama was policy-driven, and you and me and others who had some difficulties with his policies zeroed in on those difficulties, not hating the man every 2 minutes and trying to destroy him and anybody around him that you feel is benefiting the president. So look at Bill Shine, our former boss at Fox News. His wife is now being crucified by the far left. Now, it hasn't really gotten hold because it's so hateful and so out of bounds. You don't attack families, all right? But they're doing it on the left. They're doing it, and CNN driving that story.
All right, back in just a second. More with Bill O'Reilly. Bill, let me play hit or miss with you here because I think I think that Donald Trump has had a few hits this week and struck the right tone a couple of times, and then he's had a couple of blunders. Would you consider his interview about Theresa May and the things that he said about Boris Johnson in the lead up to his meeting as a hit or a miss?
It's hard to say because that's a tabloid newspaper that doesn't really print the truth. The reason he did that interview was because of Rupert Murdoch. Murdoch owns that paper and then owns the Fox News channel, so that's why that was even done. But if Donald Trump did disparage Ms. May, and it didn't look like she was perturbed by that or believed it or whatever. I mean, they had a fairly relaxed body language situation in their presser this morning. But yeah, you don't want to say bad things about a leader of any country when you're showing up to the country. Yeah. I mean, that's not really a good strategy.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, I've always appreciated the way Benjamin Netanyahu and other leaders around the world come here and they say, look, those are your internal politics and we're not involved in that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to poison the well. Netanyahu despised Barack Obama. Yeah. It was obvious he did, but he never overtly said that or did anything to indicate it.
Correct. How about his comments to NATO? How did you perceive the comments where he sat down at the breakfast table and said, you guys got to, what are we doing with Germany taking all of the natural gas from Russia while we're trying to protect them from Russia? And you guys need to sit up and pay more.
Well, this is Trump with righteous indignation at his best. Now, you got to understand something about Donald Trump. Whereas most people, they don't care real personally about stuff like the Russian pipeline into Germany bringing natural gas. Trump is offended by that. He gets offended by certain things. So he was indignant that he had to go over there to Brussels, a place where he doesn't have any interest in being, and because these people won't pay their fair share of defense costs for NATO, which is outrageous and insulting to Americans, and everybody knows that. And now Putin, has got the pipeline in bringing natural gas, and he can shut it off at any time, which gives Putin 100 times more power than he had before that. So both of those points are legitimate. Now, would I have done it at breakfast? No, I don't think so. I would have probably done it in a more formal place. But at least he didn't throw a bread roll at anybody.
Right.
I thought he was going to, or oatmeal didn't fly.
I thought it was actually, I thought he's had a couple of moments that were the first real presidential moments I have seen from him, that where he was off the cuff and genuinely presidential. I found that moment strangely satisfying. And maybe on the edge of, I don't know if you should do that way or at that setting, but he backed it up. He was solid. He wasn't his typical insulting self. And I thought he was presidential this week.
Yeah, I don't think the breakfast was presidential, but he did it to intimidate them,
yes,
the leaders of the countries of NATO, 29 countries. He did it to intimidate them, and he did.
Okay.
He intimidated them.
So, yes, he did.
Yeah.
And that is part of politics.
He walks in, and he's 6'2", and he's 245 pounds, and his tie's down to his knee, and he sits down, and he goes, "Hey, I don't want any grapefruit. You guys are pinheads, and here's why." And they're all like, their heads are snapping back because nobody does this.
I know. All right. So was that a hit or a miss?
I think it was a hit in policy and a miss in style.
Okay. Let me go to another moment that I thought was presidential. And I'm long on the record that Putin is an enemy to not only the United States, but he is an enemy to all mankind. He is a stone-cold killer. However, the president, I prefer that we don't call somebody our enemy. If there's a chance to not be an enemy, we'll treat you on the facts.
Especially when he's got a conference coming up with this guy.
Yes.
This week.
So he's asked, is he an enemy? The left goes crazy. The same left that mocked Mitt Romney when he said that was the biggest geopolitical foe. They went crazy when he said, which I thought was very presidential, no, he's a competitor. He represents Russia. I represent America. If we are friends at the end, great. If not, no big deal. I hope we don't become enemies. We're competitors.
Well, you also have to point out that when Barack Obama was caught on the open mic saying, hey, once I'm reelected, I'll have more latitude to deal with you guys and give you what you want. The left didn't say a peep. Yeah, look at this. He's dealing with Putin behind the scenes. You never heard it.
No.
Okay, so Trump and Putin. Here's the thinking, and this is his thinking across the board. All right, Putin's not any different. Trump doesn't care about Crimea. There's no potential golf course there. It doesn't matter. Crimea could be Saturn. Mm-hmm. Okay, doesn't care. Couldn't care less. The only thing he ever says about Crimea is Barack Obama let it happen. All right, so that's number one. That's not going to be a topic of discussion. Trump doesn't care about it. He doesn't care that Putin's a psychopath. He doesn't care that Putin is topless most of the time in the Arctic, which is a little strange.
He doesn't care. Should he care about those things?
No. All right, because what Trump wants is a deal. This is what he always wants. Always, with everyone, he wants a deal. And the deal is two-pronged. He wants a nuke deal, all right, to de-intensify nuclear weapons, which is symbolic. It doesn't really mean anything. And then he wants Putin to stop misbehaving in Syria and Iran and other places that's costing us money, all right? So he wants them to stop. Now, will he get the deal? Maybe, because Putin is in trouble economically. And the only reason that Putin has got control over his country is because he runs a secret police that poisons people who speak out against him. And, there's absolutely, it's just like the old Soviet Union. There's no difference.
So
it's just that one communist government was replaced by a mafia government.
Right.
That's all.
So
that's the only difference.
So
Trump wants 2 deals. That's what he wants.
Help me out on this. I don't know if we have any left anymore, but do we lose any moral authority by saying, I don't care about these things. I only want a deal that's, because it's costing us time and money.
Say that. Trump will never say that. I'm saying it.
Right, I know, but it goes back to my question. Should he care about Crimea? I think we should care about that.
You got to do greater good. Putin's not giving Crimea back, no matter what you do. All right? So it's over. It's not coming back. So the greater good is let's get something out of them that's going to prevent bloodshed and economic disaster for the world. Let's get something out of them and, work along those lines in the future. So it's greater good. They all do that.
Bill, there was a story this week that only my show and The Blaze and Wired magazine covered. It is Cody Wilson. He's a guy who made the first 3D printed gun. He sued the federal government because they put him into a class of an arms dealer, and he actually won. He can distribute the CAD drawings or the blueprints for guns, and you can 3D print guns now. It's very controversial, but it was a huge win for the Second Amendment, and in the settlement, the government admitted that the AR-15 is not a weapon of war. It is a modern-day sporting rifle, as long as it's not fully automatic. That, to me, was one of the biggest stories that was not reported or underreported. What do you think the biggest story of the week was that we may not have talked about already?
I think that the growing disenchantment on the part of the American people toward Washington is a very underreported story. We talk about the media, but that's reported. Everybody knows that's in play. But people are really starting, when you look at that hearing yesterday, with their yelling at each other and their point of order and parliamentary this, and it takes 10 hours to do what you could have done. You and I could have done that interview with Strzok in an hour and a half and then had a nice dinner. It took them 10 hours. All right? The fix was in on the Democratic side. They didn't want to know anything. They didn't care what Strzok did. Strzok could have gone out and hit President Trump with a hammer, and that would have been fine with them. And then some of the guys on the Republican side are purposely embarrassing Strzok with questions about his own wife, which were way out of line. So the Americans are saying, you know what? These are clowns. These are clowns. This whole system is built on nothing. We're not getting representation on both sides. We're not getting quality people. We're not getting smart people. We're not getting honest people. And I think this is really seeping now in to what the hell, who's running this country? Who's running it? We got a bunch of dishonest people in the Democratic Party who couldn't care less about what happened, couldn't care less about what Peter Strzok, the lead FBI investigator, did. That's frightening. That's frightening. And people are starting to get it now because you see it right in front of your eyes. Maxine Waters, Sheila Jackson Lee. You see these people. You hear them. Yeah, go out and follow Trump supporters around and give them a hard time. And, hey, if somebody hits them or somebody shoots them, that's too bad. I mean, this is our leadership in Washington. So people, by osmosis, little by little, this whole structure that we have is starting to collapse. And the Democrats, you're going to see it worse when, what's his name, Brett Kavanaugh goes up for his hearings. Where do you see that? This is a decent man. You may not agree with him or his rulings. They're going to try to tear him apart personally. And Americans are going to watch that. And they're going to go, this is our system?
And it's really crazy because he's not a guy that the right, or at least people like me, are cheering about. I'm okay with him. But he wouldn't have been.
He's not an ideologue. He's an establishment player.
Right.
That's who he is. But even so, he's led his life in a way that has been constructive. And when he gave his daughter the middle five over there, in the little thing in the White House, I mean, that was a really nice moment. And they're still trying to tear his throat out. And people just watching this. You expect it from Planned Parenthood that makes money off abortions. You expect that. You don't expect it from elected officials. And that's what you're going to get. It's going to be revolting, Beck. Those hearings are going to be revolting.
Well, I can't wait for them to start and to hear your analysis of them. Bill, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, Beck, you have a nice... I'm going to be in Ireland next week.
Are you really?
Yeah.
So you're not going to be on the show next week?
No, I can't talk to you next week, but I want you to read Killing the SS.
I am reading it. It. Okay, I'm not very far, but I am reading it. I started it a couple of days ago. So,
and the reason you should read it is because this is a topic that you're interested in, evil.
Yes.
This is about evil. And that's what the book is about.
The SS part, or you
know what evil is?
Okay. Bill O'Reilly, thank you very much.
All right, guys.
Bill's book comes out on September 18th, and so does mine. And is he off now?
Yes.
Is he off? Okay.
Yeah, he's off. You got it.
He cannot. He cannot win.
No,
I'll never hear the end of it.
Oh my gosh!
Love of
you
Pete.
Imagine?
Oh my gosh! Oh, I'll never hear the end of it.
Even if he beat you by one book, it can't happen.
But here is the good thing: go out and buy his and buy mine at the same time. Mm-hmm. And here's the good thing: we'll just be fighting over who's number 2 and who's number 3, because the New York Times. They'll jump off the top of the roof before they'll give it to... I mean, if that's not Sophie's choice, oh, man, who do we give the number 1 slot to? There's just no winning that week for the New York Times. It's September 18th. You can order online now. It is Addicted to Outrage and Killing the SS by me and Bill O'Reilly. All right, I want to talk to you a little bit about Casper Mattress. Casper Mattress is going to give you a fantastic night's sleep. You're going to be able to guarantee that you're going to have a great night's sleep because you're going to order the mattress, they're going to send it to you, and then if you don't love it, the first 100 nights, you can just ship it back. Now, when I say ship it back, you call them and they come and pick it up. So Casper.com, use the promo code Beck for a great night's sleep. Casper.com, use the promo code Beck. You can try it for 100 nights and you can save $50 on select mattresses. It's Casper.com. We have a lot to cover here in an hour remaining of the program. We have more on Strzok, some more audio on that, on the president's visit with Theresa May, some uncomfortable moments there. We also have a story that I mean, don't tell me you can't do things. I'm going to introduce you to a guy with no arms that stabbed somebody that was coming after him.
That's a true can-do attitude right there.
When you hear the story,
it
is getting it done. And if this is where we have to get our inspiration, in America, so be it. So be it. So we have that coming up. Also, Starbucks solution to replace plastic straws is backfiring.
Oh, no.
No. I feel
don't
bad.
say that.
Yeah, well.
Don't say that.
No, I've got to say it. I've got to say it.
No.
So that and so much more coming up next hour. Stand by.
Glenn Beck.
Well, before the president left for Europe this week, he issued a pardon to 76-year-old Dwight Hammond. Hammond's 49-year-old son, Stephen. Now, if those are names that you remember, but you don't remember where, you might remember them as the Oregon cattle ranchers who were sentenced to 5 years in prison for setting fire that spread into a portion of federal land in Oregon. In 2012, the jury acquitted the Hammonds on some, but not all of the charges against them, and they went to prison. Now, after serving a short term, the Hammonds were released only to be sent back to prison in 2015 when the Obama administration filed an appeal and the federal court ruled that the Hammonds had been improperly sentenced. But it was the Hammonds being sent back to prison that sparked an even more famous standoff in Oregon. The perceived injustice to the Hammonds inspired the Bundy brothers, Ryan and Ammon, to storm onto the wildlife refuge in Oregon with other ranchers and militiamen. They were engaged in a 41-day armed standoff with federal agents. Now, Cliven Bundy and the Ammon Bundy and the Bundy ranchers, don't confuse them with the Hammonds. That's not the same, and the president didn't say anything about the Bundys, as I think he's actually right to go into the Hammond case, but not the Bundys. The presidential pardon will take some time off of Hammond's 5-year sentence, though Stephen has already served 4 years. His father has served 3. White House statement about the pardons called their imprisonment unjust and the result of overzealous effort by the Obama administration to prosecute them. This pardon is the second major move the president has made since taking office to signal greater support of residents in western states who desire to see more local control of federal lands. Last December, Trump signed the largest rollback of federal land protection in U.S. history when he significantly reduced the size of the Bear Ears and Grand Staircase Escalante National Monuments in Utah. If you remember, when the president was running, he said he wouldn't do those things. He said those lands were best in the hands of the federal government. It's one reason why I had a problem with his policies out in the West. However, he is not executing his policies the way he campaigned. Critics say the president's actions are only going to encourage other fringe militia groups in the West to try more armed standoffs with the government. But has any of these critics actually considered that the president's actions might actually have the opposite effect, making citizens in the West feel like someone in the government is actually listening to their grievances? I know it drives the left totally insane. But if you're being honest about things, you have to see some of the things Donald Trump is doing is good. Also, no one can say